My name is Dr. Carmen Beckham. They told me not to come home for Christmas. The call came 2 days before Christmas. I had just walked in the door after a long overnight shift at the hospital. I was already exhausted, but I still smiled when I saw my suitcase packed by the bed. I had gifts for everyone, even the strawberry filling they always asked for, though they never remembered I was the one who made it. I'd even bought a new green sweater, software simple, elegant. When my phone buzzed on the wooden table, I saw my younger sister's name, Jasmine. I figured she was calling to ask for extra silverware, or maybe a ride, like every year. But instead, she said, "Hey, so listen, Robert's coming for Christmas, right? He's really sensitive to energy, the vibe of a place. And because of your work, sometimes the mood can feel kind of heavy. So we just think it might be better if you sat this year out. Nothing personal." I didn't argue. I didn't ask what she meant by heavy. She didn't say, "You're a devoted geriatric doctor who helps people die with dignity." Number just heavy, as if I were a wet towel, messing up her Instagram aesthetic. 2 hours later, my mom called. Her voice was soft, almost like a lullaby. "Sweetheart, we're just trying to keep things easy for everyone, you know? You know how sensitive she is. If you come, it could create tension. Honestly, we might not even open the door." That's when I realized I wasn't just being uninvited. I was unwanted. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "Okay." I hung up, opened my banking app. Mortgage payment canceled. Car loan frozen. Family emergency fund locked. I stopped being their silent support system. No posts, no messages, just silence, like someone had died. And for the first time, that silence was mine. For a long time, I thought the way my family treated me was normal, that maybe I was just too serious, too focused. But as I got older, I realized it was something else. Once, on my birthday, right before giving Jasmine the biggest slice of cake, my dad joked, "Jasmine, the golden child, creative, charismatic, the miracle baby, after years of trying." And me, I was just the first. When Jasmine was 7, she scribbled all over the living room wall with a permanent marker. My parents said it was expressive. When I broke a bowl while helping set the table, I was told I was careless, that I needed to be more mindful. Jasmine got a participation certificate at school. It stayed on the fridge for a week. I brought home a report card with straight A's. All I got was, "That's nice," and it went straight into a drawer. One time, I left my perfect transcript on the kitchen table, hoping someone would ask about it. No one did. When I got into med school straight out of college, no retakes, no wait lists, no drama, I printed out the acceptance letter and handed it to my mom. She said, "Wow, that's a lot of stress. You're gonna have to be really careful not to burn out." When Jasmine dropped out of college for the third time to pursue ballet, they threw her a welcome home party, cake, balloons. There's even a framed photo of her holding a paintbrush in the hallway, like she cured cancer. They said she was so artistic, so sensitive, so talented. And me? One time, I found my sketchbook in the recycling bin, under grocery store flyers. When I asked about it, they said they thought it was scrap paper. I was crushed, but I kept going. I worked hard, graduated early, got licensed, started caring for elderly patients, people who'd been discarded, forgotten, left to die alone. I gave them my time, my energy, my entire heart. At home, I contributed quietly, fixed the plumbing, paid a maintenance bill without being asked, lent Jasmine money when her freelance gig fell through, never asked for it back, never brought it up. But none of it mattered, because in my family's eyes, Jasmine was the star. And me? I was just the one who always showed up on time. the one who never complained, until I stopped showing up. There's a strange kind of pain in being the one everyone relies on, but no one really sees. That was me, the responsible one, the helper, the one who quietly paid for the new water heater when the old one broke in January, the one who noticed my parents' account had gone negative and transferred money before they even realized, the one who bought Jasmine's holiday plane ticket when she said she was broke after splurging on new gear. I never said no, not once, not when my mom needed to pay for physical therapy, not when Jasmine called me from the highway because her car battery died again. I bought her a new one that same week. I was useful, and I thought that meant I'd be valued. But I started noticing the pattern, the way my contributions were invisible. So I stopped. When I was around, they said I was too serious, too intense, too quiet. When I wasn't, everything felt lighter, easier, more fun. Still, I kept helping. For love, I told myself. Out of duty, maybe. Or maybe out of habit. But after that night, when they told me not to come home for Christmas, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger, it was clarity. I opened my banking app and paused the recurring transfers. The emergency fund, locked. The $900 a month I sent to cover their mortgage, gone. The $1,200 Jasmine still owed me, I knew I'd never see it again. But I also wasn't sending her another cent. They didn't notice right away. That's the thing about being quietly useful. People only notice when you stop. I didn't announce my withdrawal. I didn't post cryptic quotes. I didn't even tell my friends. I just let the silence settle. And for the first time, I felt peace within myself. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone in my apartment, with a mug of hot chocolate and a blanket that still faintly smelled of fabric softener. I didn't open the presents I had wrapped. I didn't plug in the tree. I didn't cry either. I just stayed quiet. There was a strange kind of peace in not showing up where I wasn't welcome. But the day after Christmas, my phone buzzed. Not once, not twice, but 4 times. I ignored my mom's call. Then came a text. Can you pick up? You've done enough damage already. My stomach dropped. Then another call, this time from my dad's sister, the only one in the family who still sent birthday cards with actual gifts. I answered. What happened yesterday? She asked gently. They're saying you ruined Christmas, but you weren't even there. She paused. Something happened with Jasmine's boyfriend, Robert. He left early. There was yelling, and then your name came up. That's all she knew, but it was enough. That night, Aunt Claire called again. She had started putting the pieces together. Apparently, Robert saw a photo of me in their dining room, an old one, probably from some birthday. He recognized me. You saved my grandmother, he said. You're Dr. Carmen Beckham. The room, according to Claire, went completely silent, but things didn't stay that clear for long. Robert asked if I was the sister they always talked about, and whatever he heard next was enough for him to quietly gather his things and leave. I didn't need the details. I could picture it perfectly. They probably started tearing me down, like they always did. Jokes like that I live in hospitals, that I make everything too serious, that I'm hard to love. Maybe they even repeated that awful thing Jasmine once told me. Carmen is basically death in a blazer. It wasn't new, but this time, someone heard it. Someone like me. Someone who grew up believing all of that. Someone who remembered the doctor who stood beside his grandmother when everyone else had already given up. Someone who saw me differently. And that's how I ruined Christmas, by not being there to keep up the illusion, by not showing up to smile politely while they gave me another passive-aggressive lecture, by being remembered unexpectedly for the good I had done, for someone who wasn't family. 4 days later, I got another call. This time, it was my mother. She didn't even say, "Hello." She just launched into it, her voice already tight. "I don't know what you said to him, but your sister's a wreck now. Robert blocked her number. He won't talk to her." And he posted on Instagram, saying he was treated like trash by the sister of a woman he deeply respects. I could hear clinking glasses in the background. Maybe she was pacing the kitchen, maybe pouring wine in a panic. Probably both. "He tagged your photo." She said it like I had committed a crime. I didn't say a word. I let her speak. Eventually, she got to the point. "We need you to talk to him, just to clear the air. Let him know it was all a misunderstanding, that she took things the wrong way." Great. Now I was the family's public relations department, damage control, for the same people who had uninvited me from Christmas dinner. "She's ruining her sister's future," my mom said, voice dropping a bit. "People in her artistic circles are talking. She's being blacklisted." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because of how ridiculous it was. They spent decades trying to erase me, and now the consequences of that erasure were finally landing where it hurt them most, their image. I didn't answer right away. I just said, "I'll think about it." But I didn't. Instead, I pulled up Robert's post. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It was just honest. He wrote about the doctor who had saved his grandmother's life, about walking into a family celebration, expecting warmth and hearing jokes about that woman. He wrote about how shocked he was to realize that someone so kind and impactful could be mocked by her own family. He didn't use names. He didn't have to. One line stood out. "Some people hide cruelty behind polite smiles and Christmas lights. But the moment I saw that photo, I remembered what real kindness looks like, and it wasn't anyone sitting at that table." His post spread quickly in his circles. People shared it, commented, tagged others, and for the first time, none of those voices called me too much or too intense. They said I mattered. That same night, right before bed, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voice message, not from my mom, not from Jasmine, not even from my dad, who only calls when he needs help resetting his email password. It was Robert. His voice was softer than I remembered from the one video Jasmine had sent weeks ago. Less dreamy, less rehearsed, more real. "Hi, sorry for reaching out like this. I got your number from your aunt. Hope that's okay. I just needed to say something." There was a pause, a long one. "I didn't know," he said. "I really didn't know who you were, but I recognized your photo. You treated my grandmother years ago. She still talks about you. She says you changed everything, that you didn't give up on her when everyone else did, that you were kind, that you were there, that you made her feel that she mattered." Another pause. His voice cracked. "Just a little this time. I'm sorry for what happened and for what they said about you. I had no idea. I couldn't sit there and pretend. So I left. That was it. I listened twice, then again, and I cried. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time in years, someone saw me, really saw me, without the filter of family expectations, without decades of neglect, without the label of too serious or too intense, not as a shadow behind the golden child, just me. Robert didn't ask for anything. He didn't suggest we reconnect or grab coffee. He didn't try to fix what wasn't broken. He simply acknowledged the truth. And somehow, that healed me more than 1,000 empty apologies. From my own family. 4 days later, a mysterious package arrived in the mail. It was a letter, handwritten on thick paper, the ink a little smudged at the corners. Inside, Robert wrote more about his grandmother. He told me how she still did yoga twice a week, still walked to the market, still told the story of the young doctor who looked her in the eyes and said, "You're not finished yet." He thanked me, not just for saving a life, but for showing him what real strength looks like. I framed the letter and hung it next to my desk, the same one where I finish my patient notes every night. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. Not to them, not to anyone. Just when I thought the dust had settled, my inbox lit up. Subject, let's start over. It was an email signed by all three, my mom, my dad, and Jasmine. A united front, like they were handing in a group project. The tone was exactly what I expected from people who think saying sorry is just a negotiation tactic. They didn't say sorry, at least not directly. Instead, they said the emotions were running high and that they regretted how things may have been perceived, which, in other words, means we still think we were right, but we're afraid of the consequences. They suggested a family meeting, neutral territory, an open-hearted conversation, as they called it. And then, buried in the 5th paragraph, came the real reason. They really wanted me to reach out to Robert, to ask him to take down the post. There it was, the true motive behind the sudden, "let's make peace." It wasn't a gesture of reconciliation. It was a bargaining chip, an attempt to restore Jasmine's reputation in Robert's artistic circles, to clean up the mess they themselves made, using me as their scapegoat. I didn't respond. The next morning, the escalation began. My dad called one of the hospital administrators, someone he'd met once at a charity event, and said I was emotionally unstable. Said he was worried about my well-being. Yes, he tried to sabotage my workplace, to discredit me. Fortunately, the administrator called me right away, apologized, said I had nothing to worry about. So that bridge burned. Then came the group message to the extended family, half-truths carefully worded, no mention of me being excluded, no mention of the things said behind my back, just a lot of whining about, "She's tearing the family apart. We're so worried about her emotional state." 2 cousins I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. One even offered me a voucher for a yoga retreat, in case you're going through something. Finally, the last move, the most desperate one, a visit. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when I heard knocking at the door. I looked through the peephole. There they were, my parents and Jasmine. I opened the door, leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "We just want to talk," my mom said softly. I didn't move, because in that moment I finally understood something. They weren't there for me. They were there for the version of me who always cleaned up their messes. And that version no longer lived there. They stood there for a while, waiting, maybe hoping I'd back down like before, invite them in, make everything easy again. But I didn't. After a few seconds of silence, I said, "No, that's it. No explanations, no anger, no scene." I closed the door, and I didn't feel guilty. Instead, I made a cup of tea, sat at my desk, and looked at the letter from Savannah, framed in a light wood frame. It reminded me that the most meaningful recognition often comes from people who have nothing to gain, who simply see you because they're paying attention. I thought about all the years I spent trying to earn the love of a family that only measured me by a version of themselves they wanted to believe in. The golden child, the artist, the one who made them look good. But I wasn't born to make them feel comfortable. I was born to heal, to hold the hands of people on the edge of goodbye, to listen when others walk away. And by doing that, I made a difference, a real difference. I didn't save lives for praise. I didn't cancel payments out of spite. I didn't leave to prove a point. I left because I finally saw the truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There is power in silence, in choosing not to explain yourself to people determined to misunderstand you. There is strength in setting boundaries and keeping them, in knowing your worth doesn't need your family's approval to be real. As I filed the patient's notes that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. So, to anyone out there who's ever been made to feel like they're too much, too serious, too inconvenient, let me tell you this: you are not too much. You are not the problem. And you never had to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's story. Write your own. And if this story touched you, if you've ever felt invisible to the people who should have seen you most, like, share, or comment. Because sometimes the quietest stories carry the loudest truths. And sometimes not showing up is the most powerful thing you can do.